Hello, everyone. Welcome to Harmonic Heart. We're a music blog dedicated to showcasing musicians' stories and talent. I'm your host, Chris Millett. I'm excited to have on Yousef Shami, drummer based in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to
Yeah.
be here.
Yousef is a drummer based in the DMV. Upon picking up the drums in high school, it became apparent that it would become more than a hobby, but a calling. As Yousef continued playing out in university and beyond, their aggressive but tasteful approach to drums became well known in the DC rock scene. Yousef is recognized for unique approaches to odd time and displaced grooves, as well as genre bending and challenging musical norms. Scaffolded by a civil engineering degree and as an educator in the public school system, Yousef lives in the DC suburbs, pursuing the dream of teaching drums and continuing to be involved in multiple facets of the music scene on a daily basis. Yeah. So yeah, welcome. Glad to have you here. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
So yeah, we met at the DC Music Summit 2020. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, Yousef, just get a nice vibe from, this person. And yeah, since then I've seen, you post on Instagram, you do covers and you looks like you've been like recording in Pro Tools and I've seen your covers on YouTube and I was reading on your website you do transcriptions and of course you do lessons for other people as well. So I'm looking forward to get into it, learn about your journey and all the different things you're
Good. Me too.
doing. So it sounds like you got into drumming in high school. Like, can you tell us some more about kind of what initially sparked you getting into drums and what that was like?
Yeah. It wasn't something that I think was very natural at first.
Hmm.
My little snippet there said about how it quickly became a calling. It definitely wasn't that way at the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, but my brother had started playing guitar when he was very young, 5 or 6 years old.
Oh.
Um, so as I got a little older, and especially as someone who didn't fit in a whole lot in school, music became something that I identified very strongly with. That kind of was a safe place for me.
Hmm.
Um, Something that I could enjoy fully without, being worried about what other people thought.
Hmm.
Um, so, as I got a little older, I became interested in not just listening to music, not just enjoying it as a listener, but like I started thinking, how can I be more involved in this? How can I get more into this? How can I enjoy this more? Um, and the answer was drums. I think for me, drums specifically because of the kind of more physical nature. Not that other instruments are not physical, but I think I saw a lot of parallels with like exercise and working out. And that's something I was doing a lot of in high school.
Hmm. What kind of exercises were you doing?
Yeah, I was doing a little of everything, honestly. I did wrestling my freshman year, which was very interesting. I didn't hate it, but I didn't continue after that year. And then I would spend a lot of time in the gym at school. We had a little, a little weight room.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Way later on, got into yoga, and I used to ride bikes as a kid. A whole lot of stuff. I am very physical person, I guess you could say.
Oh, cool.
Lots of kind of fitness stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I mean, drums, especially in the way that um, I felt like there were a lot of exercises that were very kind of parallel to exercises in the weight room. You have a certain number of hits that you do, of strokes that you do on each hand for each exercise. You slowly raise the pace or the volume. So there's kind of a systematic approach to it, much like when you're in the gym or you're doing exercise.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you could say that there's two parts of it. That's one part, and then the other part is my brother already played guitar, so drums was the perfect match for that, right?
Oh, right, right. So would you two play together?
We played together for quite a while, yeah. Of course, that changed during and after college. We don't live together anymore, but we play from time to time still.
Mm. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about, drumming being a just a very physical activity. That's, something I was actually curious about and wanted to, because it seems like it's almost like a full body thing. Kind of, could you speak some more to kind of the feeling you have like while you're drumming, like the physicality or kind of, it seems like drummers can really just get into like a zone and really in the moment. What's that like for you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Okay, where to start with this one? Um, I think that yeah, I mean, speaking generally, drums is one of the few instruments where you're using your hands and your feet at the same time, as well as your mind, because a lot of playing instruments is being able to count and be able to be aware, not just like physically doing something with your body. Um, so I think in that way, I started to think about, and this is the way I teach it too, your body as kind of like a full, like a well-oiled machine where all the parts
Mm,
are working with and against each other.
oh,
Um, I use the idea of like a push and pull in a lot of the concepts that we talk about in drums.
interesting. Mm,
Um, so I think it's I've had a couple students who have come to me with like a dance background or a martial arts background, and we always get along really well because we have conversations kind of based around that about how the body moves, with itself against itself with your mind,
mm,
um,
mm,
with all these moving pieces, physically moving or not, but all of these moving pieces kind of together.
mm, mhm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, to go a little more into that, I talked about our hands, our feet. We use our fingers in specific ways. There are different grips, between that focus more on fingers, on wrists. Same thing with your feet. I mean, there are different techniques that you can use to either go faster or play harder, etc., etc.
mm. Oh, okay. Well, you described drumming as a calling. Was there a specific moment where you felt like, oh, I got to do this as much as possible, or that you remember feeling like enthralled by drumming?
It definitely wasn't a specific moment, but it definitely wasn't very gradual either. I think for me, there were definite steps. Um, in high school and even the beginning of college, I did not see music as a thing that was realistic for anything other than like after your 9 to 5. Um, so I think once I kind of uh, went into that 9 to 5 life, kind of like during internship in college, and then after that, I realized this isn't for me. As much as I like the work or am good at the work or get along with coworkers or whatever, there was an emptiness.
Mm,
And so it kind of became apparent after college, um, working the engineering job that I had, the office job that I had. Um, but it was like gradual from the beginning of college, and then it was like, okay, fully aware, like eyes fully open by the end, a year after college. Um, and on that note, there's nothing wrong with working a 9 to 5 and doing music afterwards. It's just not for me.
mhm,
Um, and I think it really took me being in that situation to get that, to know that.
mm, mm,
Yeah, because it was like the kind of thing that I'm thinking about it every day. It's all I want to do.
mm,
Um, I wasn't thinking about my job at all,
mm, mm.
my job at the time.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I see. Yeah, it was like really calling to you. Like it was. couldn't get it out your mind. You were in your job, like just thinking about drumming and how much you would rather be drumming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I mean, I would imagine like civil engineering being also like a technical thing. Um, like I guess I could see some parallels between like kind of the technicality of like perhaps civil engineering and like there's really technical aspects of drumming too. But they're
Yeah,
really
you
two
could say
different.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you may or may not have um, thought this, but I think one of the big things was kind of like the business skills that I picked up
Mm-hmm.
from that job.
Oh, nice, nice. Wow. Hmm. So a calling and a passion. Yeah, just to be able to do it, for your career full time.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
You know,
Working.
I missed the last part you said there.
I'm just saying, working on it
Yeah.
slowly but surely.
Sweet. Um, let's see. Are you still at the civil engineering job now, or is it kind of have you transitioned?
No, yeah, I left that. It must have been 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, yeah, it was for what I wanted to do, especially with teaching lessons. That was kind of my first step into the professional music world. It just wasn't going to work to juggle a job with that.
You brought up kind of a little earlier, feeling like not really fitting in and being able to, um, with music, kind of have more of your full self come through and with drumming. I think that's interesting. It's something I relate to. I think that's, something, seems like it happens commonly, with musicians. Can you speak some more, um, to how drumming, like how you've been able to come through as, you know, more yourself through that?
Yeah, I love that question. Yeah, we're all a bunch of weirdos, aren't we?
Right.
Musicians. Um, yeah, I think even kind of going back to what we were talking about with the physical aspect, I think for me, with drums, once you kind of have the language, once you have the toolkit, um, you're not thinking about each specific note every time that you're playing it. It's just natural, it's muscle memory. And so for me, one of the ways that I express myself is, coming up with various rhythms or pulses, some kind of rhythm that is maybe non-standard, something that's coming from somewhere else than whatever the guitarist is playing or something like that, and kind of building rhythms that are very feel based rather than theory based. I mean, I know it's a little bit different on drums in terms of theory than guitar, bass, piano, whatever. But I think, yeah, kind of having that base level of percussion knowledge and skills, and then kind of being able to be very fluid with it and be more creative. I think that kind of, in the end of the day, what how that manifests is just me um, being kind of like, you could say, creatively authentic. Like I'm just purely creating in a judgment free way,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a way that just feels very natural, and it like kind of almost conveys the way that I'm thinking or the way that I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I can, from what you're describing, I can hear, you know, your own individuality coming out through, the rhythms and, you mentioned, you've become known for, using, odd times and displaced grooves and having, individuality and kind of your own ear, and personality, coming out through that, and um it's all feeling, so, even, your own like emotions and how you connect, personally with the music coming through. in those, rhythms that are grounded in fundamentals, but you're bringing, your own taste and your own rhythms. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what was I gonna say about that?
Mhm.
Just that, I guess like so, a lot of the music I play is, where the music that I like and play with other people is more technical music. And I think people's idea of more technical music is that it's very, very like nerdy, very like we're all sitting in our notebooks writing out all the music theory stuff.
Um,
Um, but I think that the way that I express myself, um, is very apparent because I play that kind of music, because you see that a lot of the stuff isn't like just straight technical, and is there's a lot of feel-based playing within something that is typically more technical.
mhm.
Um, I hope that makes sense.
Um, yeah, I mean, it sounds, well, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. When I hear technical, I think my mind goes to like math rock or something like that. But, I know you play like metal and metal bands, right? That's kind of um your favorite genre, would you say?
Ooh, it's hard to say. I
Okay.
usually just say rock because it's like very, very general and includes a lot of different subgenres.
Okay, nice. Yeah. So, um, yeah, well, yeah, just more, technical, basis, but there's room for, um, there's space to bring in, uh, yeah, kind of your own kind of tastes and rhythms as well. Mhm.
I'll say this, as kind of a closing thought for this little conversation. I cannot remember for the life of me the drummer, but I'm sure someone knows. Um, there was a drummer that once said, um, something along the lines of, "Yes, it's the drummer's job to keep time, but what a good drummer will do is make that time interesting."
Mm, I like
I
that.
think that's what I kind of try to aspire to do.
I like that. That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So much of, yeah, especially in live, but also recorded, like, we just feel, that drum beat and the rhythm, like in our chest and, as an audience. And yeah, just the drums add so much to the mood, um, and the whole experience. So making it interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm kind of personally curious, so with drummers, are you really like counting that whole time, or is it like you kind of have the fundamental movements down and it's automatic, or kind of does it vary by drummer, or...
Yeah. Um, I would think, again, I don't speak for all drummers. I would think that most of us, just have a feel, an idea of where things should land.
Mhm.
Um, there are different kind of tricks that a lot of drummers use. And you may have seen this, watching drummers or playing with drummers in the past, where like they'll keep time on the hi-hat. They'll count with their left foot or something like that, especially in solos or something like that.
Mhm.
So I think there is very much kind of like a physical timekeeping, but not necessarily like a, numerical count every single time.
Yeah.
You just like know when the measure begins again, and when
Mhm.
you land on the snare on the three usually, or whatever it is.
Oh, right, right. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's see. Hmm. um Teaching has, become a big part of what you do, and um you've also mentioned, you know of course, how teaching others, it helps us to sharpen our skills. What have been some takeaways that, you've had from teaching others?
Okay. Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, sure.
I think, though I kind of knew this going into it, it became much more apparent a few years in that um, a lot of the time I think teaching music is more about all the things outside of the music. So
Mm,
connecting with people, finding different ways to explain things to different people, different modalities. Um, how to work with a student who doesn't want to be there.
uh,
Um, all these things that I guess like public school teachers know all about.
mm, mm,
Um, but then the business side of it, like marketing, promoting yourself as not just a musician but a music teacher,
mm,
especially when we're competing with uh, you know music and arts and Guitar Center and all that. At least for me as like a self-employed
mm, mm,
teacher. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that has been really eye-opening the past couple years. Um, the music, of course, I think like um, we talked a little bit about kind of some more skills that I've developed since then, like transcriptions. Like those are all things that maybe I knew how to do a little bit before, but being in the situation to have to teach someone about it, you're like, okay, I got to make sure I know what I'm talking about. I got to
right.
um, and so I think it kind of on one hand there's the learning, the teaching skills, there's the business, and then there's just kind of having something else to keep you straight with your own practice and to things that have gotten me to ask more questions about especially like music theory and stuff like that. Um, Especially again with quarantine, with
Mm,
figuring out how to transmit this information over video chat or through email or whatever.
mm, mm.
But yeah,
Oh, hmm.
a whole lot.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And that's, interesting too, it's a lot of, themes of, communication. I mean, like drumming itself is a form of, expressing yourself, but, in terms of teaching, like how can you reach different, age levels, just differences, coming through, how can, or like learning styles. And even, yeah, with marketing, like how can we connect, and reach, other clients too. Yeah. Kind of, and that could be less about all that. I might have frozen for a second, but that could be less about um, the actual music and more about just how we connect with others. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you performed in quite a few bands, and you seems like you recently joined the band For Fear itself. What can you tell us about that band and your experience so far?
Yeah, so I'm very excited for that band. Just like practically the other day joined, so I'm learning all the material. Um, I think that I really connected with the vocalist, and talking about like marketing and that stuff. He's fantastic at that. So I felt very connected to him in regards to like being professional and we're working really hard and wanting to make music
Mhm.
his thing, his full-time thing. That's what I
Mhm.
want to do too. So
Mhm.
in bands in the past, I was usually kind of the lead person.
Mhm.
Um, so this is definitely a change for me. Um, I think for a long time, being kind of the quote unquote band leader took away, actually, ironically, from my own musicianship, my solo work. The covers that you've seen,
Mhm.
my website, all of these things that I kind of put on the back burner forever. Um, but yeah, I think the communication, that's really such a big thing in music. Um, it's a big thing overall, I guess, right? But I learned a lot about communication through all of these projects in the past. And I also learned like how to read non-communication. That's something that happens a lot in bands.
Mm,
Um, and you know, it's I guess in a way it's also been kind of a mental health journey and figuring out how to work with people when you're all working on something that you're very, very passionate about. And you know, people, um, you know, when it's your brainchild, when it's something that's so important to you, so close to you, then it can get really personal.
mm, right.
Um, but yeah, you know, as well as that, again, the business skills, the marketing, the promotion, um, booking shows, all of that stuff has been really, really important. I think for me as my growth as a musician, because it's a lot of this stuff is the kind of stuff that you have to learn just from figuring it out. Um, I hear this from people who went to music school as well. You know that you may have the knowledge, the theory knowledge, you might have the connections, but you still have to kind of get out there and do the groundwork.
Mm, mm, mhm. And yeah, again, quite a few things, stuck out to me there, interesting having to, when being the leader of the band, there's numerous things that go with that. Um, you know, so having less time, to devote to, your actual, musicality and playing in your own personal, perhaps personal branding as well. So I could just imagine that, you know, maybe this new band experience could be like, 1 + 1 = 3 type of thing if,
Yeah.
you're nice, yeah, alignment, you know, in terms of goals and not perhaps it being all on you. Yeah, bands, just awesome, when there's, cohesion. It's, yeah, that's interesting what you say about like the communication and like things that aren't said and things being so personal and um, yeah, it just seems, like, if there's 5 people in the band or 4 people and, people all different coming or different, there could be different goals or different, reasons for being invested in the band or different levels of interest too. Um, so all that kind of stuff is really interesting to me, kind of taking into consideration all of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly challenging, but potential to be very rewarding.
Mm, that's awesome. Yeah, you've learned a lot in terms of like marketing and booking shows as well. Can you give any, tips for, independent musicians in terms of marketing themselves and getting and booking shows?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty introverted, so kind of the common thing that is thrown out there is go out to shows and meet people and talk to people. Well, that's not so easy for me most of the
Mm-hmm.
time. But the great thing is with the internet nowadays, you can still have conversations with people over text, over email, um, even phone call or video call. Um, and so I think it's still really about um, I think what I found to be really effective and really useful and also really rewarding is reaching out to people directly, having conversations rather than like a lot of people will like just blindly post in groups or something like that or tag a bunch of people in something, and when someone else sees that they're not going to look at it, they're not going to pay attention, they're going to be like, oh, it's spam, or oh, I'll check this out later, but they're not going to check it out later. So I think kind of the personalization, like directly reaching people, having conversations, um, that is 10 times better in every situation.
Mhm.
In terms of booking, especially, I mean, you've got to know the right people to book. You've got to know who's at what venue and what venue is doing what. Um, there's definitely a piece of right time and place, but I think for people who like don't have a lot of resources, for people who are not very extroverted, um, one of the best ways I think is just trying to do something yourself, even if it's not top quality, because then you meet people and then people see the effort that you're putting in, people see the work that you're doing. Um, so to give you an example, like I did a couple house shows at our place. Not the fanciest thing, um, but the shows went well. Everyone was really excited about it, and I think all of the bands there, we made very lasting relationships with each other and with the guests, the fans. Um, and so it was just playing at our house, nothing fancy. Just the practice amps that we had, but it was fun. It was a good time, and we made connections. So,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes there have been plenty of times I've played like 100 plus, crowd shows, and you don't see anything come from it. Barely anyone talks to you. You check your social media pages the next day, and no new likes, no new follows, no nothing.
Right. Mhm.
But just like having a good conversation with one person is totally the opposite.
Mhm.
It can make such a big difference.
Yeah.
So TLDR, um, talk to people directly or message people directly. Don't kind of just dish out your stuff and hope that someone sees it.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Man, those are gems. Those are gems, man. Yeah. Directly talking to people and um yeah, doing what you can where you're at, to kind of push things forward. Um, hmm, man, yeah, those are awesome. Let's say what tips would you give, people interested in learning drums? Let's say maybe someone that is just wants to learn drums and then someone that like just got their set and they're ready to sit down and learn.
Okay. Um, so for the first one, like just someone who is just like thinking, do I want to play drums? Or like they've made a
Mhm.
decision.
Right. Yeah. They're like, it might be pretty cool, like to learn drums. Like, I think I'd like that. It looks so awesome when I'm at a show and like the drummer looks like they're having so much fun. I think I might want to do that type
Hmm.
of
Okay. So it's going to be a little bit different, um, depending whether I am trying to get this person to sign up as a student versus
thing.
just tell them about drums. Because the first thing I would say is, that it's hard work, right? You know that
Mm-hmm.
you have to practice, right? It's not just fun and games.
Right.
Um, but as a counterpoint, I did not practice seriously for a long time. I still don't think I practice as much as I should. Um, but if you can suck it up and do some focused practice a couple hours a week, you'll get there. So other things I would say though, probably that kind of selling drums, saying how like I love drums personally because they're so versatile, because there's like literally no musical genre that I can think of, at least, that you can't find some kind of use for some percussion. Um, and it's really cool because even then, with all of these different genres, there are a lot of things that are very similar and a lot of things that are very different. We talked about kind of a musical toolkit or a musical background. I think with drums, especially, once you have that language, it's very easy to translate it into a bunch of different contexts. Um, and I teach drum set or drum kit, which, to clarify for people, that's literally just a set of drums. It could be a drum set that has any type of drum, not just like snare drum, toms, crash cymbal, stuff like that. Um, so I think that's something that people forget sometimes, that it's not just like, a lot of people think of drums and think like rock stars, like Led Zeppelin and stuff like that, but like drums, it's it's really it's in everything. It can be in everything. It can add to everything, I think. um so in that way, I think that almost anyone can get into it and find a way to enjoy percussion. Yeah.
And let's
I would
say,
just call it very universal, the universal language.
right, right. Probably one of the first, instruments, right? Drumming. Yeah. Mhm. So,
Yeah.
and what about, someone that, they just got their set, and they're ready to get going.
Yeah. So what would I say? Just to clarify, were you saying like advice for them going forward, or just kind of what I think about drums?
Mm, yeah, maybe like advice or like, yeah, advice. So.
Okay. Um, yeah, I would say that there are certain things that, just like with other stuff, that you need to develop the good habits really early.
Mm,
And with drums, it's not that many. Honestly, it's not. It's two or three really important things that if you do from the very beginning, then you'll be okay.
mm,
Um, One of them is the metronome, which I think any musician should practice to, but I think a drummer really, really, really should practice to a metronome. Um, so the metronome, um, and then also, just starting out on the drum set, to be able to understand how and when to like practice, to like have focused, purposeful practice versus just jamming around. And there's a time and place for both. Both are very important. Um, I'll even say with myself, like some of my best musical moments were just, throwing stuff together, just winging it, not
mhm.
sitting down and trying to do something specific. So just being able to kind of identify both and understand what is required from both, and that both are important.
We're gonna, as we're wrapping up, what, kind of are the main things you're kind of doing right now, and what services can people, hire you for?
Awesome. Yeah. So the main gig is teaching. Um, I'm getting close to 5 years now, actually,
Oh,
there.
cool.
Um, I also do recordings. I track drums at my place. I'm not like a mix master, I'm not a mixing mastering expert. But I do track drums. I've done, a few albums, a few songs here and there. Um, of course, hopefully this is going to become a thing again. Playing gigs live, and that can be in any genre. Um, and then again, transcription. So literally any kind of song with any kind of percussion, I can transcribe it. And I think personally, excuse me for selling a little bit.
Well, yeah, this is
I
your
like to,
time.
yeah, thank you. I like to be very, very, like, I like to have a lot of kind of intuitive cues in my transcriptions. I think I try to make it as easy as possible to understand it and to like go piece by piece and understand understand what's happening or to relay what is happening between everything and not just like each part.
Mm,
Not just
mm.
what note is being played, but how you play the note,
Oh,
what you
yeah.
need to be listening for, things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean that's kind of like when I list all those things, that's kind of a lot of what my practice is based around is like awareness,
Mhm.
time awareness, and creativity within that awareness.
Mm. Mm. Very great. And where can people, contact you and follow you?
Yeah, so the easiest place is going to be yousefshami.com, first name, last name. And at the top, I have, like a menu bar that has links to all of my external websites, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that'll be the easiest place. It has everything on there. I also have a link tree,
Mm.
um, which is just linktree / Yousef Shami drums.
Mm. Oh, okay.
And that has all the links on there as well.
Mm. Yeah, and anything else that you'd like the people to know?
I don't think so. I would just thank the people for checking us out today, for supporting Chris and this podcast, the
Mm.
interview.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Yusuf, for coming on and sharing your journey, your tips, and yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Me too.